Okay, so welcome to the show. I'm joined by my guest, Dr. Eric Kaplan, who's out in New Jersey today. Thanks for joining me today.
You got it. How's everything with you?
It's pretty good. Getting a little chilly out here in Chicago, but that's all right. Fall's a good season.
Right.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk today about Alzheimer's. Is that right?
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a topic very very near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure a lot of people's hearts. So I'm excited for the topic.
Yeah, so I got involved with Alzheimer's as a result of my grandma. So when she moved to Florida, I saw her brain very slowly diminish. And we were from New York, so she lived in Brooklyn, and I would go from New Jersey to Brooklyn and see her on Sunday nights, and she always told me about she was playing tennis, and she was playing card games, and she would go dancing, and she always was a great cook. She always looked so beautiful. And then once she moved to Florida, I slowly saw all this stuff diminishing because she stopped having activities and she had no friends and family. So she just basically sat on the couch watching TV all day, and she was not doing anything active. She wasn't using her brain at all, and she stopped dressing up, she stopped cleaning, she stopped cooking, and then she stopped remembering things, and eventually she forgot even who I was, the last time I saw her. And she was just saying, I want to die. This is the worst life. She had a diaper. I mean, it was super, super sad. And, once I found Dr. Carrick, I was inspired. I said, wow, I could help all these people from their brain diminishing and just improving their quality of life so they wouldn't have to suffer like my grandma suffered.
Yeah, and I feel like that story is all too common in today's day and age, and it's terrible. It's terrible, really. So, your
But the good news is with all the yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the good news is with all the latest research is that we now know there's so much stuff that we can do. So even though back then I didn't know it, the beautiful part is that we know a lot of the stuff now, and hopefully we'll share some of that today so we can help your audience and improve their own brains and people's lives around them as well.
Right. And that's really what I'm hoping to get into today with this talk, which I think a lot of people would be really excited to hear about. You had mentioned, this was kind of the catalyst that got you into the field that you currently work in. You found Dr. Carrick, who, of course, this is the world of neuroplasticity. The brain has the ability to change given the right amount of input and fuel, etc. Can you talk to us about kind of your journey in that field, and then how you've seen this brain-based neuroplastic model affect your patients now that may be developing Alzheimer's or different types of degenerative disorders?
Got it. So I think the way the world works is just I got in literally at the most perfect time. I was in chiropractic school at Life University in the year 2000, just a great number as well. And I see some of my friends just talking in the back of the classroom on a break, and they were just talking about Dr. Carrick, and they were just amazed by his research and his work, and they're like, oh, he's got a seminar this weekend, and it was on the autonomic nervous system, which is still my favorite whole part of the brain and the nervous system. And I fell in love with neurology, in the first seminar, within the first hour, and I knew that the brain controlled everything, and if I wanted to really help and make a difference in people's lives, I had to be an expert in the brain. And the beauty part is, in my first seminar, we were talking about neuroplasticity. So it was like, all these people decades before just believed that the brain couldn't improve and it couldn't change and it couldn't rewire, that, if you had a stroke and the brain cells died, that was it, that there's nothing that could be done. And that was always the thought. But my first seminar, that wasn't the thought. The thought was that we can change the brain. So that's all I know. So I thought that was perfect timing, because I've never had these previous thoughts to think that that wasn't possible. And I've just built on that for now almost 20 years, and just, following Dr. Carrick and his teachings and reading the research and doing as much as possible to improve brain function. So, my timing was absolutely perfect, and I got into it, full force, and, every month, and, I was already test right when I graduated. So it was just, I don't know, I think, the universe just brought me to neurology, and I'm here to help improve brain function. So I'm very excited to be able to share this information with you guys and help to improve the neuroplasticity of all our patients' lives and our families and friends by doing a few very simple things that, we'll cover as much as we can today.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like you were definitely in the right place at the right time.
Right.
So you were talking about neuroplasticity. We were talking about neuroplasticity. Some people maybe in older age may say, oh, well, I'm older, I'm getting older, my brain isn't as, viable or isn't as changeable as it may used to have been. Is that the case that you've seen in your office, or do you think that the brain always has the ability to change?
Well, the brain always has the ability to change, but the longer you take, the harder it is to reverse.
Mm-hmm.
If we start when they're babies, it's super easy. So when we're working with, younger children, as their brain's developing, their brains change so quickly. So it's a pretty, a lot faster process. The older you've been, you have neuroplasticity in a bad way. So, most people just talk about neuroplasticity in a good way, but you could also have neuroplasticity of a bad way. So if you continue to do these bad habits over years and years, you create these bad pathways. So first, you got to break down those bad pathways before you could even regenerate and start new ones.
Right. So what are some things that people can start doing now, maybe before they get to that old age, that can help stave off these degenerative disorders?
Right. So one of the most important things is novelty, is doing new things. So that is the most important thing. And we're talking about children before, everything's new to them. So that's why their brains, work so well. When you see these functional MRIs of younger children, their brains are all lit up, they're yellow and orange, or it looks like they're on fire. And then you see an adult brain, it looks completely dark, like we're brain dead, because we don't use the brain and we don't do anything new. So the first advice is to definitely do new things. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, make sure it's a new way. Even if it's just walking to work, you walk in a new route. So don't always do the same thing. Don't, press the alarm clock with the same button and then walk to the bathroom, take the same exact steps, same exact routine every single day over. You go into the car, you go to work, you come home, you eat, you watch TV, you go to bed, and you just do the same thing every day. The brain hates that. It needs to do new things every day. So even in your daily life, brush your teeth with your left hand. Do something different. Take on a new activity, whether it's, a dance class or a card game, or, go play basketball outside, or just do some power walking, or whatever, makes you move. And that's the second thing, is movement.
Mm-hmm.
So people think that you could just, download these games like Lumosity and, oh, I'm working my brain. Or just sit down and do the crossword puzzle every day. Oh, I'm working my brain. But you're not using movement. So movement is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So all the exercise I give to my patients, I want them moving as they're working their brain. So, like a dance lesson is perfect, because you're using your brain, you're moving, you're getting out, you're being social. Being social is very important.
Mm-hmm.
The brain dies when it's alone. The brain cells die when they're alone. and the body dies when it's alone. The worst punishment of mankind is solitary confinement in prison. That's the worst thing. You'd rather be next to murderers and criminals than be alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad being alone is.
Absolutely.
And not, being on Facebook and, getting people to like your pictures. That's not being social, even though it's called social media. It should really be called anti-social media. So you need to be out in the public. That's very important for the brain, to be interactive with people and see their facial expressions and live in a three-dimensional world, not a two-dimensional world. Use all of our senses. If we're on Facebook, you're not using smell, right?
Right.
You're using sight. You can sometimes hear things if it's on video, but you're not tasting anything. You're not feeling anything. So you're not using 3 dimensions. 3 dimensions goes for visual, and 3 dimensions goes for auditory as well. So we need to hear sounds from all around us as well.
Absolutely.
So those are just a few good things to get started right away that are super easy to do.
Yeah. And those were 3 huge points, I think, and I want to go deeper into a few of them, if you don't mind. You were talking about exercise and movement, and obviously novelty, and potentially incorporating novelty into your exercise and movement. But just as maybe a general recommendation, what are some types of exercise, whether it be aerobic versus anaerobic, resistance versus cardio, that you think or have found to be most beneficial to the brain, as well as how often a week or a month should people be doing for the maximum brain benefit?
Yeah. Well, definitely every single day you have to do something. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to go to the gym every single day, but you definitely have to be active. Have dinner, go for a hike. Like I said, you just have to move the body. So it's got to be something. And you don't want to get in that routine. We're talking about novelty. So you don't want to see, I go to the gym a lot, but I see the same guys, Monday morning, every 5:30, they're always doing chest. And then Wednesday, they're always doing legs. And then they just get in the same routine. And yeah, they look big and strong, but is that the best for the brain? So they're doing their workout to gain their muscle mass, but I'm looking at it from the functional neurology perspective. It's not about just how you look, it's really about how you function. So they're getting this same routine over and over. All the latest greatest workout routines now that are very popular are about mixing up the routine. All that stuff like CrossFit and P90X and Insanity. And, it's all about doing different activities in the boot camps and the training where you go in the circle and you do a different machine every time. So it's all about variety is the key. And you got to do what you like to do. So if you're not like going to the gym, it's not going to happen every day. So you got to find activities that work best for you. So some people, it might be hiking. Other people, it might be swimming. Another person might to go rollerblading or going for a bike ride or playing tennis or playing soccer or basketball or whatever it may be, going dancing, taking a salsa lesson. You got to find something that's fun, but it's got to get your heart beating. That's important. You got to start sweating. So that's important as well. And then we also need to do weight-resistant exercises. So if you don't want to go to the gym, you could do push-ups and pull-ups at home and squats and lunges. So there's lots of ways to have some resistance. You just get a band and you could do resistance bands, especially the community that's worried about dementia and Alzheimer's. If they don't do weight-resistant exercises, they're also prone to getting fractures because the bones are going to become weak. So the best ways to keep the bones strong are to do weight-resistant exercises. But that's also very good for the brain as well. And you have to do a variety of all your muscle groups, literally everything, all the flexors, the extensors, the abductors, the adductors. You got to work every single muscle group, the top and the bottom. So you don't necessarily have to do a specific routine, but it has to be a variety. That's the most important thing. And it has to be fun. Because if it's not fun, you're not going to do it.
Right. So just to summarize a little bit, just to wrap up, kind of three important things that you can accomplish just with exercises. A, obviously, you get the exercise benefits. B, you can achieve the novelty if you're intentional about which exercises you're doing. And C, you really get the social aspect too, like you said, with the dancing and the different classes that you could take. So really, you can kind of achieve all three of those things on a daily basis, just with
Yeah,
exercise.
that's
So,
exactly right. And that's the key, is always doing multiple things at
mhm.
once. And that's what the brain likes, which is called spatial summation, where you're using all different types of input at the same time. And then we got to do temporal summation, where we do these things a lot over and over. That's how neuroplasticity works, combining those two things, spatial summation and temporal summation.
Absolutely. So I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the other component of neurodegeneration, and that's, I guess, diet. So, what have you seen, or what are your thoughts on maybe the standard American diet and its relationship to these
Right.
degenerative disorders?
Yeah, so a lot of the research that's been coming out has been linking diabetes to Alzheimer's disease.
Mhm.
So there's a high correlation. So one of the first things I do in my practice is take a look at the blood work and see if they're diabetic. Look at their hemoglobin A1C, look at the fasting glucose, and if those numbers are even close to the high end, we know we got to work on that immediately. And that's super important for two reasons. Number one, to get the systems working, and number two, what we would do is create what's called autophagy in the brain. So what autophagy is where you actually starve the brain and kill off all the bad brain cells. And the way you do that is by doing a ketogenic diet, where you're basically getting rid of all the sugar and carbohydrates, which would bring down your glucose and hemoglobin A1C numbers, and at the same time creating the autophagy effect in the brain, where you can actually kill some of all the bad brain cells and neuroplastic concomitants, and improve new ways, and then feed that the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And since you bring up autophagy, there's a lot of research about the benefits of different fastings and intermittent fastings.
Yes.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
Right. So, what I recommend for patients who really want to improve their brain function is the intermittent fasting. And in our patient load, a lot of these patients are having sleeping difficulties and their circadian rhythms are messed up. So, what I have them do actually is eat from 9 to 5. And those are the 8 hours that I've found get the best results to improve brain function as quick as possible. A lot of people extend those hours and might do 12 to 8, but I found that doesn't work as well as doing from the 9 to 5. And I always say go to the rules of the sun. So you want to eat when the light is out. If the sun's down, you shouldn't be eating anymore, because that messes with your brain. When back in the day, there was no light, you had to get your food during the daylight and you had to eat during the day. And at night, you would relax and rest and go to bed. And that's what our brain needs, is to go to bed early. So you want to sleep from 10 to 6, and you want to eat from 9 to 5. So it's important to follow that regimen. Obviously, it's Friday night, you want to have fun, you want to go out, there's exceptions to the rules. But 80, 90% of the time, you want to do it the right way to really give your brain the best shot possible, because the sleep is important too. It oxygenates, regenerates, it relaxes from all the overstimulation all day. The cortisol levels should be down, the melatonin should be up. And then when we wake up in the morning, as the sun comes up, that's when we want to exercise first thing in the morning. Testosterone's high. Get everything going in the morning, have sex in the morning. That's a great way to start the day as well. And then, eat a nice healthy breakfast, starting at 9 a.m. So that's the best way to do it for your brain function, is to get in that type of, it doesn't have to be exact. Like we said, novelty's good, but in that range, and novelty with your food as well. You want to cover the rainbow, eat each color of the rainbow every single day, and switch it up. You don't want to have, oatmeal and yogurt every morning. That's the worst breakfast. People think they're eating a healthy breakfast with oatmeal and yogurt. That's actually really bad. Dairy is very inflammatory for the brain. So yogurt, they say, oh, it has probiotics, which is good for the gut. Yeah, probiotics is good for the gut, but you don't need yogurt to get your probiotics.
Right.
So there's lots of other ways to get it as well.
Okay. Very good. So, what are some of the other ways? We'll just piggyback off of that to that somebody might be able to
Well,
get
you could do
better
your own.
probiotics.
You could do your own fermentation. That's a little bit more work. You could purchase probiotics. I like Claire Laboratories. I think they have the best type of probiotics. You get powder ones for infants even. When I had my babies, they were like licking it off my pinky. So, you can literally get good probiotics. And the key with probiotics is to switch it. Sometimes patients come to me, oh, I'm taking probiotics. I've been taking it for 10 years. And they take the same exact bacteria, the same exact company, same exact bottle every single time. You don't need to do that. You're probably pretty good with that bacteria. So you always want to switch it up because your body has more bacteria than cells. Our body is mostly bacteria, but we want to make sure it's good bacteria. So we want to keep on, switching it up and adding different bacteria. And we don't want to be afraid of bacteria. So all these, antibacterial lotions and soaps, we want to get, everything. We want to be exposed to different bacteria. We don't want to hide all our children from this bacteria. I think it's good bacteria, and just fighting it builds your immune system. So you want to be smart, before dinner, wash your hands with soap and water. So we want to be smart and be sanitary. But don't be super scared of bacteria. We need to be exposed to bacteria so our immune system fights, and we need to have good bacteria to fight off the bad bacteria as well. So any patients who've been on antibiotics, which kills off the bad bacteria, also kills off the good bacteria. So it's very important to replenish after you take antibiotics and during. So if you're taking antibiotics at 8 in the morning and 8 at night, usually they do it twice a day, you want to take probiotics at 2 in the afternoon, directly in between. Because if you take your probiotics, right after you take the medicine, it's just going to kill it off anyway. So it doesn't do as much good. So you want to do right in between to get the best effect. And then after your round of antibiotics, then you have to replenish it. And I recommend switching it every 2 months to do different types of strains of bacteria.
Great. And in addition to supplemental probiotics, there's a lot of great dietary sources as well, like your kimchi or kombucha, sauerkraut,
Right.
etc., and then pairing that with a good prebiotic as well.
Yes.
A lot of great ways to incorporate these things into your diet, because we know that gut-brain axis is such an important factor.
Exactly.
Playing off of that, say I am a 30-something-year-old person. I don't test as pre-diabetic or diabetic or anything, but I have a family history of Alzheimer's, and one of my big concerns is not going down that road. What's a potential diet for me? Maybe not necessarily keto, since I'm not in that pre-diabetic area, but
Yep.
Maybe what's a good diet and some good healthy things that I should incorporate into my diet.
Yeah, so definitely, fruits and veggies, you don't want to limit that at all. So some people say, oh, don't have fruit. I totally disagree with that. You want to eat from the way to eat is eat like they did, 10,000 years ago. So you eat the fruit off the tree, you pick the vegetables, you can catch a fish, catch a chicken, grab an egg. You just want to eat on the outside of the supermarket. That's the best part. All on the inside is all the bad stuff, everything that's in the boxes and the cans and the bags. And, you really want to eat as much as you want. You don't have to limit food. But you just have to have a good wide variety, very colorful diet. You have to stay away from dairy. So I think that's important for everybody, not just for people who are, test positive for lactose intolerance. It's just not a natural way of eating, because we're not cows. the cows have the milk for their calves, and the goats have the milk for their baby goats, and the sheep have the milk for their baby sheep, and humans have milk, for our babies. So
Mm-hmm.
after we're breastfed, there's no reason to keep drinking milk. People are always looking for milk and milk substitutes and coconut milk and almond milk, and a lot of that stuff is, I don't know how many almonds are in almond milk, but I know it's very little. You can make your own almond milk by just slicing some almonds, soak it overnight, put it in the blender in the morning. But I think people waste a lot of their money on these products that they think are healthy that are not very healthy. All these gluten-free products, they're all full of sugar. So, you got to be careful and just say, just because it's gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because it's fat-free doesn't mean it's healthy. Don't be, scammed by all these marketing gimmicks. Milk, it does a body good with their celebrity mustaches. So the average person, I say, just really eat like they did 10,000 years ago, but you do that 80% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then 20% of the time, do whatever you want. Have some ice cream, chocolate cake, go have a burger, have a beer, enjoy life. Because, especially at 30 years old, you don't want to be all limited in, I can't go to this restaurant and I can't eat here. So I call it the 80% rule. 80% of the time, you're doing it the right way. And then 20% of the time, you can cheat and do it how you want. And that should be enough to keep you healthy, from a nutritional perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just sitting at work all day on the computer, and then you go home and watch Netflix all night, and then you go to the bar and sit at the bar, and you go and sit at the movie theater, and you sit at the play, and all you're doing is sitting and on Facebook and Instagram, and if that's all you're doing, your brain will die.
Yeah.
You can't, and that's what everyone's doing all day long, is sitting. So I call it the 20 rule. No matter what you do, every 20 minutes, you get up, even if it's just for 20 seconds, and you have to walk 20 feet, and you also have to look 20 feet away, especially if you're at the computer, because you can't just be looking at this flat screen all day.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look 20 feet as well. It's the 20 rule. So every 20 minutes, you get up for 20 seconds, you walk 20 feet, look 20 feet, and then you can go back to whatever you're doing. If you're watching TV, if you're eating, if you're working, doesn't matter what you're doing. Just get up every 20 minutes. It'll make a huge difference.
Absolutely. So movement, again, very, very important. And these 3D spaces, like you talked about, very important. One more thing that I want to touch on that kind of goes along with the diet is the consumption of healthy versus unhealthy fats and the importance of that to the brain, especially as we age.
Right. So there's what's called omega-3s and omega-6s. So the key is to eat more of the omega-3s and have a better ratio. So we could find those, in fish. So we got to be careful with the fish. So, a lot of patients, if they have too much fish, they could get mercury poisoning, actually. So the smaller fish have less mercury. So you want to eat smaller fish. I also recommend eating fish outside of the Pacific Ocean, because ever since the Japan nuclear meltdown, the Pacific Ocean, the radiation levels have gone up drastically. And obviously the fish that are in the Pacific Ocean have higher radiation levels as well. So now I'm actually staying away from Alaskan salmon. Everyone says, salmon's so good. But, Alaska is pretty close to Japan, and all those waters have been contaminated. So, you're better off maybe trying stuff in the Atlantic as opposed to the Pacific. And you always want wild fish as opposed to farm-raised. Even better than organic is wild, because if it's organic, then it's still in like a farm-raised, and they're not allowed to swim around a lot, so they need that exercise too. So if you're eating animals that are not exercising, that's not good for your brain either. Mm-hmm. So that's why when we're eating chicken, we want to make sure it's not necessarily cage-free. Cage-free, they could be in a little room, just not in a cage. So they need to be free roaming out in the pasture, out in the grass, eating their natural diet as well. So we want to make sure the food we eat is very active in addition to our cells. So that, is super important as well.
Yeah. I think that was a really good point.
And the omega-3s, Sorry. The omega-3s also, the other areas, we could do coconut oil is very good for that as well. Some of the nuts are very good for that. Eggs are very good for that. But
Mm-hmm.
again, organic, grass-fed. So it's not just what you're eating, it's the quality.
Of
So
course.
the quality is very important. With the Alzheimer's, there's a lot of sensitivity to heavy metals. So, you got to make sure that you're not, cooking food in aluminum or storing it in aluminum or using deodorant with aluminum, because that can, be linked to Alzheimer's. Mercury, we talked about in the fish. It's in, I think, one of the flu shots. Thimerosal is in one of the flu shots. So a lot of senior citizens are encouraged to get the flu shot. So I think they have an option if they choose to do where they can get the one without the thimerosal. But you want to reduce heavy metal toxicities, maybe lead in your water. So you can get that checked out. You can get a water filter. Water is very important for the brain. You have to drink half your body weight in ounces. I have these Alzheimer's patients. I could tell the day they're coming in and they're not hydrated. Their brains are literally in one day go down in function from not drinking water. If you see a fruit that's dehydrated, it shrivels up. That's what happens to your brain. It shrivels up. So we want to make sure we keep lots of hydration. And a lot of these patients with dementia and Alzheimer's, they, all the caregivers, they won't drink water. They have to. You got to be creative, whether it's, mixing it in a smoothie or something or putting some flavor in it, but they have to get their water. It's super important to hydrate the brain and all the cells and keep your systems functioning at high levels.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we've touched on quite a lot today. Is there any resource that you may know of that maybe have like a concise list or game plan that could help
Yeah.
people interested in this topic?
Yeah, actually, I have one right here. This is my book,
Oh, look at
Boost
that.
Your Brain Power. Yes. So this is 17 ways. We probably covered, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, or 9 of them or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 17 ways. You can contact me via email, which is info@kaplanbrainandbody.com, or go to my website, www.kaplandc.com, and you can contact us that way. Call the office, and we can get you in touch with the proper ways to get the book. So it's the 17 best ways. It's a guide just to improving your brain function. It helps to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. And if you've already been diagnosed and get going on this stuff, it can help to reverse it and turn off these bad pathways and create new, better pathways to improve brain function and feel better and function better and get your quality of life back. That's the most important thing, is quality of life, because you might be 90, 100, 110 even, but we need quality of life and
Mm-hmm.
better brain function. So you want to be around and not be like my grandma who didn't want to be around.
Yeah.
So we want to be around and enjoy life.
Well said. Great quote to end on. So thank you very much. We're out of time actually, but thank you very much for taking time out of your day to talk to me and educate our listeners. I thought this was incredibly informative. So thank you again, and yeah.
You got it. Have a great day.
Yeah. So from your host, Dr. Coppus, this has been the Neuro Wellness Podcast. Be well.